It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set.
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 the Midlands, or around the world on the iHeart Radio application. Coming up, we'll hear some from Dabo Swanny. Of course, his Wednesday night teleconference or press conference takes place after we get off the air. Hour 2, Tim Beret joins the program. So again, last night after we get off the airwaves, Dabo Swanny got a chance to talk to the media. He was asked about Phil Maffa and his help, and also Mason Trotter, and if he had any updates on those guys and whether or not they would be a game time decision. Again, if Phil Maffa can't go, still very limited are your Tigers at running back.
I think we got a couple that'll be game time decision, but nobody, again, kind of like the other day. I think they're all getting better, but nobody that I'd rule out right now.
As you might imagine, a lot of people very interested in that offensive line for Clemson. I mean, it has been a revolving door. And, of course, with Matt Bockhorst out for the year, everybody kind of trying to see what pieces of the puzzle Dabo Swanny can put together. He was asked about how Trent Howard's developing and also freshman center Ryan Linthicum. Here's what Coach Swanny had to say about those guys.
Oh, he's a good bit ahead. You know, I mean, he's just got a little more time, and although he battled some sickness last year with mono and all that stuff, but and Trent's a savvy player, going to be a really good player. He's just basically a true freshman because he didn't get a lot of opportunity last year, but knows what we're doing, really understands what we do. He's about 295, so he's still undersized a little bit, still developing, but he's got a great frame and, like I said, going to really be a good player. So he's got to be ready. I mean, we got what we got, and I'm confident that he can play center or guard for us and get the job done. Linthicum actually is going to make the trip this week. He's the guy that's still got 3 games left, trying to hold his red shirt. So still just developing and learning. He's been mostly on the scout team, and he and Tristan just down there grinding away, trying to get better and in that weight room doing the power hour. But we got about 9 guys, so we got to make it work.
Coach Swanny was also asked about some other guys on the offensive line, Paul Teo, et cetera, Mitchell Mays, and just their opportunities and the fact that they have their ups and downs, but getting snaps is really key.
Oh yeah, no, they're going to be great players. Teo's a redshirt freshman. He's, that's just it's a hard position, and he's super talented, but still putting it together. He's had a good week of practice. He's gotten a lot of work this week. So I was disappointed in him last week. He wasn't ready, and he goes in on a draw and gets beat inside. And, that's like OL 101. And so just being ready, he's got all the tools. I don't have any doubt he's going to be a good one. Really pleased. Like Rayburn is a redshirt sophomore, and man, he and Trotter are really doing some good things. I'm pleased with what we've seen out of those guys. But that little group of redshirt freshmen, Mitchell and Trent and Teo, Tucker, they're all kind of still coming. And but we love all those guys, and Mitchell, I think, is a guy that hadn't had as much opportunity. And again, every game down to every play seems like life or death. But they're making good progress, and hopefully they'll get a little more opportunity down the stretch.
Another thing Dabo Swanny was asking, I do think this is quite interesting, is what separates like some of the guys who start as freshmen and are able to come in and play versus some of those other guys who maybe it takes 2, 3, 4 years even to develop to be able to get out there on the gridiron.
Yeah, Marcus, I don't think we would have redshirted him, but it would have been nice if we didn't have to start him. And, we could have kind of just, like we did with Jackson Carmen, kind of let him back up and bring him in. And it's just really, really hard to play very early in the OL. You got to have a great foundation, man. It's physical. It's a lot of mental. Game is fast. You're going against some of the best athletes out there within D linemen. So it's a tough position, but Marcus has made a lot of improvement for sure. But you remember a guy like Falcinelli starting center on our national championship team. Man, what a player he turned out to be. And he was a guy that, kind of the typical redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore. You start to really kind of see it, and then boom, hopefully by their junior and senior year, they're some dudes. And that's kind of how it's always been in that position. Then occasionally you'll get a rare guy or two that can not just physically do it, but mentally do it early. But those guys, there's just not many of those guys out there. It's a very much a developmental position in a developmental game. And and that's kind of where we are, especially with John Williams being out. He was a guy we were excited about. I do think Dietrich was one of those rare freshmen that had a chance to really, I think, compete to be a starter this year. And it's just unfortunate that we lost him. Super excited about him. And then, obviously you lose Bach as well. And Taekwon was a guy that I think could have really helped us. He was going into he's a third-year guy as well. So it's just it takes time in that area, and hopefully keeps you guys healthy. But you look at Jordan McFadden, look at he redshirt freshman, was a backup. Last year as a redshirt sophomore, became a first-time starter and did a good job for us. And now he is just as steady as they come and on his way, and he'll be playing in the NFL. Hopefully he comes back, but he'll be well prepared and don't be a guy that'll make it for sure.
Speaking of some young guys who I think a lot of people were hoping would play, especially after the wideout struggled a little bit, Troy Stellato. Dabo Swanny was asked about, what's really held him back. We know he was banged up. We know he was hurt at the beginning of the year, but here's what Swanny had to say.
A little bit of everything, but I will say this: he's really responded, and he's making some good progress. And then, we've got 3 games left that we're gonna try to get something out of him. But a little bit of all of those things. First of all, he missed most of camp. I mean, he came in behind. He missed most of our skills and drills. He was hurt, and then just the transition wasn't easy for him. Practice habits, speed of the game, playbook, you name it, all of it. But he started, but he's behind right out of the gate. And so I think him being able to kind of take a step back and really, really grow and learn. But the good thing is he's really responded. I was just telling Grish yesterday, he's really improving, man. I'm excited because he's got all the tools. But you gotta be able to put it all together. And so this has been a good year for him, and he's in a good place, and hopefully he'll have a little opportunity somewhere down the line here as we finish up the season. But definitely excited about the progress that he's made and the foundation that he's building to be a good player.
Again, Clemson Sports Talk here on a Thursday afternoon. Dabo Swanny was also asked about what he likes about wide receiver Will Brown and whether or not he sees a little bit of himself in the walk-on wide receiver.
Well, he's a grinder is what I like about him. He's a tough kid, unbelievably committed to the program, loves Clemson. He's talented. He's a good player. He's just one of those guys. We've got probably 4 or 5 walk-ons in our group of receivers that are really, good players if they had more opportunity. But it's a really competitive thing. But he's a grinder, and he's a guy he's just hung in there, man. He's just battled. He had some injuries early part of his career. Had a hard time with his hamstrings, but it's been good to see him healthy and become a contributor. So just smart kid, like I said, committed, tough, and very dependable.
again, Clemson preparing to take on Louisville on Saturday night, 7:30. The place will be rocking. Dabo Swinney was asked about the turnovers, and even more specifically, Coach Swinney, and you can hear all of this audio on our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com, talked about just not shooting yourself in the foot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to not score for the other team. That's first and foremost. Let's don't just turn it over, but let's don't score for the other team. That would be a good trend to change as we start November here. But yeah, I mean, you can't help a team like we get ready to play. They're a good offense. They're balanced, and you're on the road. You need to do everything you can to win the field position battle, to win the momentum when you have opportunities. And there's nothing that creates momentum for the other team more than turnover. And so got to be opportunistic and take advantage of our opportunities. We need to create some, but we certainly got to keep them on a long field. And we'll take care of the ball, be smart.
One other thing Coach Swinney was asked about and got a chance to discuss, this is typically that championship time of the season, the championship phase of the year. I mean, they've been rocking and rolling along for so many seasons. It's kind of weird not to have them being at or near the top of the college football playoff rankings that came out on Tuesday. Here's Coach Swinney's conversation about championship phase.
Yeah, well, every game's the best of one, first of all. That's just kind of the way it is. Nothing's changed. It's the biggest game of the year. It's the one we're playing. But it's the championship phase, regardless of where we are. It's just the championship phase of our journey, of our year. And, we've been a good November team for a long time. And we've got to stand on the foundation of this program and go have a great November. And to do that, we need to find a way to go win this daggum game in Louisville. That's where it starts. But anything can happen. There's a lot of ball to be played. I mean, we certainly aren't where we want to be in that we control our destiny. We don't control our destiny. But we have to focus on what we do control, and that is taking care of, the opportunity that we have, finding a way to just win and keep moving forward. We've got 4 days left in our regular season, and all 4 of those days are critical. And so we hope to have a great. We got better in October, and hopefully we can get better in November and find a way to finish really, really strong, because you never know what's going to happen. We've got 2 conference games left, and the best we can do is 6-2 in this league. But we got to take care of the opportunities that are in front of us. And if we do that, we'll live with whatever we get. So a lot of ball left to be played. And then obviously we're going to finish our regular season with the state championship, which is very important to everyone. So just trying to have a great November and the best finish that we possibly can have. That's our focus.
One other guy that's going to be out there on the gridiron that has a mentality very similarly to Dabo Swinney's is Coach Scott Satterfield at Louisville. And Swinney was asked about his relationship with the Cardinals head coach.
Well, I got to know him a good bit when he was at App, and even when he was down at I think FIU maybe, or FAU, one of those. He came up a few times and we visited, brought his staff in. So really good guy, really good football coach. But they're tough, they're physical. They have a lot of option principles to what they do, which creates a lot of challenge thematically. They use their personnel well, and they're incredibly balanced offensively, and then defensively, they got a good scheme, good players, and again, just well coached. I mean, they're a 4-4 team, but they're a lot better than that. I mean, every game they've had a lot of competitive games, and 2 that they were tied in the last minute of the game, including obviously at Wake Forest. So it's a good football team for sure, and we got to play well, and we got to play our best road game. That's for sure. Something we haven't done yet this year, and hopefully that's something we can get changed in the month of November.
One final question that Dabo Swinney was asked was about the COVID-19 protocol. And again, this was last night, so Wednesday night. And you have to appreciate Dabo Swinney's answer given the times we're living in.
No, not yet. So, I mean, check back later. But as of Wednesday night, knock on wood, we don't have any of that going on.
803-450-0086. So there you go. Dabo Swanny again talking about all of these guys and just getting ready for this matchup against Louisville. And, I understand. I mean, it's a difficult time. You can still hear it in his voice when you think about COVID-19, when you think about its impact on college football. I mean, it's not what it was a year ago. It doesn't feel like, but it's still very much out there. And I was asked earlier today to talk about DJ Uiagalelei and my thoughts on Clemson's starting quarterback. And quite frankly, guys, I got to tell you, I do wonder if some of the issues that he's had obviously comes down to NIL, but additionally, how much of any of the issues that he's dealing with have come down to simply the fact that DJ Uiagalelei is a young man who's probably having to live somewhat in a bubble. And I know all players aren't doing that. I know all players probably aren't limiting themselves to a degree, but I think most of them are probably much more cautious than you or I. And again, I've always said when you're talking about COVID-19, it absolutely you can grab that thing right off of a can of peas at the grocery store. But I do think that if you were a high-profile college athlete over the past 2 years, I mean, it's probably been pretty stressful because you probably don't feel like you can be as out in the open as you were at one time. And I mean, when you hear Dabo Swanny's answer, I mean, how could you not recognize that?
No, not yet. So, I mean, check back later. But as of Wednesday night, knock on wood, we don't have any of that going on.
Like, that's not confidence. And I'm not saying that you have to have confidence if you're Dabo Swanny in order to feel good about the situation with COVID-19, because that's not going to make a difference. But, you're going into these games, and we're talking about the running back room. We're talking about the offensive line issues and the injuries and the wear and tear that the season has. And yet still, in the blink of an eye, you can lose 2-3 players without anything, without them being on the field. So just trying to adjust to that, I think, is probably still very difficult for especially the high-profile guys, especially like if you're one of 9 or 10 wide receivers, you probably have the luxury of being a little bit more loose with your life than if you're the starting quarterback. I mean, there's simply not another player on the field that you take them away that changes the game to the degree that even losing a struggling DJ Uiagalelei brings to the table. I mean, that's just the hardcore facts of the way it works when you are talking about one of the biggest names in college football. I mean, this is a team that started with, 6 running backs? They've had 2 guys transfer out, 3 if you include Ches Malusi. And has it had an effect? Sure. Is it as significant as if DJ had COVID-19 and had to miss a game or 2? No. I mean, that, and again, that's not even a great performing DJ Uiagalelei. You bebop around the roster, you can lose defensive linemen. You can lose linebackers. I mean, all of these guys can miss games and miss time, and the impact and the negative impact on Clemson football is slim to none. However, let DJ go out. Now that's a different story. Then you've got some trouble. 803-450-0086 text line, phone line again. Tim Beret coming up in hour number 2 of the show this afternoon. Lawton Swan rolling along, hanging out with you, having a good time. Our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Go read about Jake Brenningstool. Man, the freshman tight end looks like he is going to be a keeper. Looks like he is going to be a ball player. And I hope that he'll continue to grow and mature into his role. Again, that is still a much needed area for Clemson. I mean, if you just think back through the years of how many times we've been on the air looking at the Clemson tight end situation since Jordan Leggett left in 2016, it has not been great. It truly has not been great. And Clemson needs that group to be better. 803-450-0086 text line, phone line again. Hit us up anytime, any place, anywhere. We always appreciate you being a part of the show. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back with more of the show that shakes the Southland. It is Clemson Sports Talk. Keep it locked here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 and on the iHeart Radio app. Rocking and rolling along with you here on a Tuesday afternoon. You know, late in the program yesterday, we played that audio out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. The Oklahoma State Cowboys basketball team placed on probation by the NCAA. And, man, it was such an emotional thing to hear. Over a $300 that was given to a prospect to a player years ago. It was a self-reported violation. The NCAA, it just drives me insane. It was a self-reported violation. Not only that, but Oklahoma State was involved in the investigation to make sure it all got taken care of, to make sure the money got paid back, and they are now being punished and postponed from the postseason in 2021, which means players who were in 7th grade are affected by something that happened years ago in this program. $300, given the scandals that have surrounded college basketball, Zion's recruitment, all of that. Here's that audio from yesterday if you missed it, because we did play it in the final segment. I know some of you weren't here for all of it, but here you go. We'll let you hear some of that stuff out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. And again, this is Oklahoma State head coach Mike Boynton yesterday.
Stan Wilcox gave a directive. He sent John Duncan and the team to save face. They won. Our players don't deserve and shouldn't have to deal with this. Russell Register and Sharika Montgomery came here and interviewed everybody they could. And they uncovered nothing. The FBI did a job, and so did we. There was a single NCAA violation. One player received $300. One player, not a recruit, not a future recruit, not a family member. One current player received $300. And in and of itself, because it was self-reported by us, it's a secondary violation. To which the punishment is you pay the money back, you serve your suspension, which the kid did, and you move on. How we're here, and Stan Wilcox and John Duncan and Russell Register and Sharika Montgomery and the Committee on Infractions, to include Ellen Ferris, Anthony Jenkins, Jonathan Alger, Allison Rich, and David Shipley. That's the Appeals Committee, excuse me. The Committee on Infractions, Alberto Gonzalez, Joe Maturi, Gary Miller, Vincent Nicurto, Larry Parkinson, Thomas Sullivan, and I don't know the young man's name who's the general counsel at Princeton. I can't say it, and I won't try to butcher it. They slept well last night. They felt good about the work they did. While I explained to 17 kids that their dreams of playing in the NCAA tournament this year couldn't be realized. And that's shameful. And there's no wonder that nobody trusts them, because they get to hide behind letters, COI, and IAF, and they don't have to come and do this and answer questions and talk to kids and talk to parents. And so the message is clear, because we had a $300 violation, no failure to monitor, no lack of institutional control, no recruiting violations, no head coach responsibility, no players playing ineligible. So if you got some of those things going on, don't do what we did. What we did was we asked them that we worked with them through this process. On January 20th of 2020, I flew to Atlanta to do the first round of this process with the NCAA. The next day, we played OU here. It was important that I be there. I went to Atlanta for no reason, to cooperate with them, to cooperate with John Duncan and Sharika Montgomery and Russell Register. And then this year, on February 7th, while in Lawrence, Kansas, for a game, the day we played, we had an appeal hearing. And we cooperated. And we showed up. And we'd answer their questions. And we provided all the information they asked. So if you're one of those other schools, be careful what they ask you for. Stan Wilcox should be ashamed that he gave this mandate, because this was about trying to save face for something that was uncovered, not because of their doing. And now our cooperation has made it worse for a guy like Isaac Likely, who was nowhere near Stillwater when this was happening. I had a young man in my meeting last night raise his hand and ask me, Coach, what are we talking about? That's how long it's been.
I mean, I don't know how you can listen to that and just not feel for that team and not feel for those players. And I get it. We have high standards for our coaches. We have high standards for our staffs. We have high standards in the world of college sports to follow the rules. But when you talk about $300 in an era where, again, we have NIL. Again, I was talking about that earlier, but in an era where we have NIL, $300 in the past is now costing the future for young men who had nothing to do with it. I mean, that's the other problem. Like, I get it. You got to have some kind of rules, but $300 that was paid back, folks, listen, the NCAA, that is absolutely ridiculous. The show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk on a chilly, man, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you ask the Amazon Echo device or the Google Home device that you have, when you say, hey, what's the weather? And they say the high of the day is currently where you already are, you know it's going to be a little bit cold. And if you know this guy, or if you are friends with my wife, you have seen the fact that she gets on me about how I hate the cold. I mean, I am one of those people. I do not mind it being hot. I don't mind the summer. I don't mind going out and sweating and just working in the yard in the dead heat. I mean, she always gets on me about that, but I'll go out there in the summer and just bust my hump in the rain, excuse me. I mean, yes, in the rain, but in the heat, it feels like it's raining the way I'm sweating. But I'm all about that. But man, this cold, misty, damp weather, that's not for your boy Swanny. I was not. I mean, listen, I may have some Scandinavian blood in my system, but I am more for the heat. I am much more for the heat. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. It is the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you again, and thank you for hanging out. Now, yesterday we caught up with Roddy Jones. Here's just a little quick snippet of that as well on a Thursday afternoon. How come the ACC is getting crushed this year? Is it just Clemson? I mean, is it all just Clemson not being in there is the reason why the Atlantic Coast Conference is being perceived as so much worse than the other Power 5 leagues when the Pac-12 has a single team in the top 25 rankings?
Yeah, well, look, I don't think anybody is standing on the table, screaming that the Pac-12 is significantly better than the ACC. I haven't heard many people even argue that the Pac-12 is better than the ACC here recently. But early on, when Clemson lost, when NC State lost to Mississippi State, and Clemson's offense is terrible, and in North Carolina got out to a terrible start, and
right.
Louisville gets whipped by Ole Miss. Like, all of those things kind of started the narrative like the ACC isn't that good this year. When us in the league, we were like, yeah, is the ACC not as good as it has been in the past? Maybe, maybe not. Like, we'll see. the non-conference performance was not good. Like, it was abysmal in a lot of ways, but it doesn't mean the league's a bad league. I think the big difference, and you and I have talked about this, the big difference in the league is that Clemson's not in the top 5. Everything else in the league is kind of how it normally is. Like, you have these teams that consistently get better over the course of the season. You have these teams like an NC State that's probably going to end up as an 8 or a 9 win team, but they're not going to be undefeated because they have flaws and they have bad days and they don't have singular guys that can overcome that. So to me, the ACC, not only is it incredibly fun, I mean, you look at the Coastal and there's 2 teams that control their own destiny. You look at the Atlantic and there's 2 teams that control their own destiny. There's probably 3 teams in the Atlantic that have a legitimate shot. There's probably 4 teams in the Coastal that have a legitimate shot. And we're going into November. Like, that's what you want from your league, as well as having some teams ranked in the top 25 because they are really good. And the ACC has that. So I'm not, I don't take crap from anybody who's like, oh, the ACC is terrible this year. It's like, okay, that tells me that you haven't watched the games, that you don't really consider all of the elements that make a league good, and that you're just kind of looking at the top teams and saying that determines whether or not a league is good or not. Look, I'm not going to say the ACC is better than the Big Ten or the SEC, but it doesn't mean it's not a good league.
He's on Twitter at Roddy Jones 20. Does a tremendous job for the ACC network. Also does some hosting over on Sirius XM. So, Roddy, Wake Forest and NC State still with 4 conference games remaining. Clemson with just a few conference games left on their slate. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3, to be honest with you, off the top of my head now that I'm thinking about it. But my point is, Wake Forest and North Carolina, Wake Forest plays North Carolina. They play NC State, so they got that head-to-head matchup. Then Wake's got to take on Clemson and then take on Boston College as well. And the Tigers are somehow mathematically still in this thing. So with that sort of out in front of this conversation, I know it's a slim chance, but boy, would it be a Clemson with 2 ACC games left. That's what I thought. I just wanted to double check that. But, I mean, That would be a heck of a shot in the arm, man, if Clemson somehow, after losing to Pitt a couple of weeks ago, ends up back in the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship over the next month.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild, and it's probably a little bit of a long shot, but not that much of a long shot. So I guess I take that back. It's not that much of a long shot. You'd need Wake to really struggle down the stretch. They've got 3 conference games left. That North Carolina game this weekend's a non-conference game. So you would need them to lose 2 of those 3. Now,
good to know. There we go.
Right.
I didn't realize that was one of those games that North Carolina and NC State and those guys have all had to Wake Forest have all had to hook up with just to play each other. So there you go. That makes it even more difficult. So good to hear that from you.
So, but if you look at Wake's schedule, like if you're a Clemson fan, you look at Wake's schedule. Boston College at the end of the year, Boston College is struggling. They are better than Boston College emphatically. But NC State, they get in a couple of weeks. And then you get Clemson after that. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that, especially if Wake loses to NC State, Clemson beats Wake. Like, Clemson is in a place where they're feeling pretty good. NC State has 4 conference games left, and they play 2 teams that you would have loved to have played in September, but you don't want to play now. Florida State and Syracuse. You don't want to play those 2 teams now. And by the way, they close the year like they do every year against UNC. And you can throw the records out in that game. Like, that is a game that UNC is going to play like it's their Super Bowl. And to be quite honest, it could actually be for bowl eligibility for UNC, depending on how this thing plays out the rest of the way. So Clemson needs help, but the path is there, and it's not far-fetched that we look up on Thanksgiving Day, and you're in a scenario where it's like, hey, if UNC beats NC State, Clemson's in the ACC championship game as they go whoop up on South Carolina. Like, that is something that's not super outside of the realm of possibility. Now, they don't control their own destiny, and Wake Forest very well. If Wake Forest goes and beats NC State, then you can probably kiss that goodbye, because I highly doubt they're losing to Boston College. But ultimately, although Boston College may have Phil Dracovic back at that time, like, we don't know. So if you're a Clemson fan, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I would still hold out hope. Clemson's got to take care of business, though.
We'll hit a quick break and come back with more of the show that shakes the Southland. Stay with us. Final segment, hour number 1 of Clemson Sports Talk as we roll along with you here on a Thursday afternoon. Again, coming up, Tim Beret, 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. And several of you have hit us up over the past couple of days. And again, as we move through the fall, we're getting further and further into, some of the final conference tournaments, etc., for women's soccer, men's soccer. We've got basketball getting set to get rocking and rolling next week. So a busy time up at Clemson. I remember this time as a student, and I absolutely loved just being full of opportunities to go to sporting events, and whether it was sitting at historic Riggs Field, whether it was being in Little John Coliseum. To me, this was the best time to be a college student. The air, as I mentioned earlier, getting crisp, the days getting shorter. I know we do. What do we fall back? We fall back this weekend, but it just to me, when I was in college, this was the quintessential time of the year where you were just like, yes, I'm so glad I'm in college. I don't know if everybody else feels that way, but that's the way I felt about it. All right, Tiger Chuck chimes into the program yesterday. He sent us a text message late in the show. We didn't get it in. He says, Swanny, the worst thing that could happen for Cincinnati is for Georgia to lose to Alabama. Then the SEC gets 2 spots. The Big Ten has a spot. Oregon gets in over Cincinnati. The only way Cincinnati makes it in is to win out and Georgia beats Alabama. Cincinnati has to jump on Oklahoma simply because they have consistently looked better. Oklahoma has absolutely no chance to win these next 3 games in a row, Baylor versus Iowa State and Oklahoma State. And if they do, I think that's where people will say, okay, Tiger Chuck, right? Like they prove that they deserve to belong. But I want to go back to what you just said about the fact that if Georgia loses to Alabama, that Georgia's still going to be in. And I agree. And I felt like that's what was lost during the college football playoff committee's conversation, or not the committee's conversation, but the analyst conversation about it, about how, well, if Georgia and Alabama are there, it's not a big deal because, and again, what you are assuming there is that the Bulldogs are going to continue to be the best team in the country. And what you are assuming is that in a 1v1 matchup against the Alabama Crimson Tide, that the Georgia Bulldogs are going to be good enough to win that ball game. But if they don't, then we have the exact conundrum that we were presented as not having because of them being ranked number 2 right now. To me, it was less about where Alabama was ranked as much as it was about the fact that you've got to recognize that a 1-loss Georgia is still going to be there. And again, I guess you could also make the argument that if you put Alabama at 6 right now, how is that much different? I don't know that it would be. Like if you at least, and that's where I don't know if the committee needs to, quote, play politics or build storylines or whatever, but, if you had Alabama, if you just said, hey, look, man, these are the undefeated teams, and at this point we think that undefeated teams' resumes deserve to be ranked higher than 1-loss teams, then go for it. Would it would not bother me. But man, when you put Alabama up there and you already set this thing up, because look, if Alabama wins out and Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, then sure, we can all say, well, they earned their way in. They beat Georgia. Georgia still, we think, is good enough to be in, and we're going to have 2 SEC teams. But right now, you're kind of defaulting it all the way to the SEC championship game. I mean, does anybody really see Alabama unless they lose? Does anybody really see Alabama falling off of the 2 line? And what a slap in the face for Georgia if they were to fall off the 1 line at some point to the Crimson Tide. Like, what if Georgia doesn't lose to Alabama? Well, let me reverse that, please. What if Georgia doesn't lose a game before they take on Alabama in the SEC championship, and yet the Crimson Tide were to vault past them in the polls? Like, that to me is ridiculous. And again, that goes back to my question. Where would Clemson be today in these polls if they had not lost, if they were still undefeated? And what if they didn't even look great doing it? Where would they be? Now, you could make an argument that if they didn't look great doing it based off of what happened to Oklahoma right now, that it's possible that Clemson wouldn't be ranked in the top 4. But what if Clemson had looked good? Like, what if they had looked good the entire time? Here's my question. Would they be ranked ahead of Alabama right now? Would the rankings, if Clemson had looked good, would it reflect in any way, shape, or form the Tigers being ahead of Alabama right now? Like, I wish, like, I can only wish. Like, that's the one thing from the college football playoff rankings last, I guess, Tuesday night that I wish I could know. Where would Clemson be ranked had they gone out and won every game convincingly? Would they be ahead of Alabama today? Because, look, if Clemson's won losses to Georgia and Alabama's losses to Texas A&M, the intrigue of that, because, again, these two teams have been 1A and 1B in the college football playoff rankings since 2015. I mean, they have been at the top. And I know it's all a hypothetical, and some of you will say, I hate hypotheticals, Swanny. I don't like it when you do these hypotheticals. But to me, that would create a level of, how does the committee view a loss, a pick 6 loss to Georgia? And I think moving forward, like at what point, like right now, and I heard this stat the other day, the top undefeated team in the polls is an SEC team. The top 1-loss team is an SEC team. The top 2-loss team is an SEC team. And the top 3-loss team is an SEC team. At every single marker, no losses, 1 loss, 2 losses, and 3 losses, it is SEC teams in there. I wonder if Clemson continues to win, at what point do the Tigers present themselves back into the rankings? And I know it hasn't been a great year, and I know you're not going to finish in the top 4. But how far out of the rankings are the Clemson Tigers right now? I think it's a decent question to ask, but an even better question is, where would they be if they had not lost any other games outside of that Georgia game in the opener? No Tim Beret today. Stay with us nonetheless.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Just call me Swanny.
Tigers time. Tigers time.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. Chop on Atlanta Braves, world champions. That's not getting old. I saw somebody on social media post who said, "Hey man, I wish the Braves and the Astros could have just played last night for fun." Man, I mentioned Jorge Solar's home run. How that thing? Did you see what the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets did? They put out a tweet of that ball landing inside their stadium there at Grant Field, just talking about how long it took that ball to get to the ground. And I'll tell you this, if you are an Atlanta Braves fan, man, soak it in, because this is a time that can be so rare. I mean, man, you got to go all the way back to when I was in high school. Well, actually, I keep forgetting that 1995, I was actually just starting college. I was into my freshman year. About this time, the time I mentioned I loved was the last time the Braves won the World Series. And that was during an incredible run where they just kept getting close and couldn't quite get over the hump. And finally they did, and they ended up winning. But we had a chance yesterday to talk to Bob Iback about some limited edition Atlanta Braves baseballs, man, that you can get your hands on. Again, they made just 2,021 of these limited edition sets. Here's Bob Iback to tell you more.
Oh, I tell you what, this is an unbelievable opportunity for folks to go ahead and get a piece of history, because, you waited 26 years for the Braves to go ahead and win the World Series again, which they just accomplished the other night, beating Houston in 7-0 in Game 6 of the World Series, and now you can go out and celebrate. And I think I've got an opportunity here that if you're a Braves fan, you're not going to want to miss out on this because, it took you 26 years to get back and win the World Series, and now you want to go out and have something that you can show off to your friends and brag about a little bit extra. What we have is a really nice limited edition World Series commemorative 3-ball baseball set. You get 3 baseballs inside a beautiful acrylic display case for just $99, with part of the proceeds going to the Atlanta Braves Foundation. Only 2,021 of these sets will ever be produced by Rawlings. Everything is officially licensed. You'll get a numbered certificate of authenticity with it. And in a moment, I'll give out a toll-free number and a website how you can go ahead and get these special baseball sets. Because, again, I do want to urge people, do this in the next day or so, because these will sell out completely, and then you'll be left out. It's a very unique item. You're not going to be able to find it in stores or anywhere else. It's only exclusive to Nyco Sports, and through helping us raise monies for the Atlanta Braves Foundation, which is a charity of choice for the Braves. Now, what you'll get, before I give out that phone number and website, how you can act on this, I want to quickly paint the picture and explain what you'll get with each of these baseballs. The first baseball features the World Series official logo on it, really stunning. It's got a section on the ball where they have information, road to the championship, with the scores, the opponents that the Braves played to get to the World Series against the Astros. Then we have the Braves starting lineup in the World Series, and then a game-by-game breakdown of the 6 games played against the Astros with the scores and so forth. All that information will be there, and you'll be able to look at that ball years from now and know exactly how this whole historic moment unfolded. The second baseball is a tribute baseball to the past 3 World Series championships won by the Braves in different cities. The 1914 team played in Boston, the Boston Braves. The 1957 team was based in Milwaukee, and I remember them beating the New York Yankees in those days. And then the 1995 World Series champions, the more recent ones until the other night, featured manager Bobby Cox and a great pitching staff of Glavine, Smoltz, and Maddox, along with Chipper Jones. So that baseball will be a tribute to those 3 individual championships prior to the recent one. And then the last baseball is a salute to Truist Park. They've got the logo of the stadium on there, the stadium aerial photograph in color. Beautiful shot there on one of the panels, and then stadium facts and stadium history. So each baseball is kind of unique. It's a wonderful display item when you put it inside that display case. Each of these 3 balls just pops out, and when you go to the website, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Here's how you can order. They're $99 each. You can call today. I wouldn't delay, because these will be sent to you in plenty of time for a Christmas or holiday gift idea. So if you're thinking about what am I going to get that Braves fan this holiday season, this is the ideal item. It's 1-800-345-2868. That phone number again to call, 1-800-345-2868. Or Lawton, you can just go right to the website. You can see it there. And I think you'll agree with me, this is a stunning display when you see it inside the 3 baseballs inside that display case. It's NycoSports.com. And let me spell that. It's NIKCO Sports.com. Or again, that phone number, 1-800-345-2868. And don't delay. I mean, you'll be disappointed, because I think by the end of the parade on Friday, these things will be sold out completely and become a very historic piece of sports memorabilia history.
No doubt about that, Bob. And I tell you what, the thing I've always appreciated about the Clemson footballs as well is just the quality. And you mentioned, these 3 individual balls and the unique aspect of it all. I mean, there's a lot to take in for that, Braves fan who maybe just jumping on right now, or that fan that's been with them for their entire lives.
Well, it's true. It's like having an encyclopedia printed on the 3 baseballs with all that information. And somebody gave me an idea this morning. If you for the $99, you get the 3 baseballs in the case. But somebody said, you know what? I'm going to break them down and take the balls out of the case, and I'm going to use them as a stocking stuffer. And I have 3 gift ideas for 3 of my friends.
Ah, Yeah,
Each
no,
one
no
gets
doubt.
each one gets a different baseball.
No doubt. And look, if you're a Braves fan like I am, I tend to, I know people don't love this, but I follow a team in the American League and the National League. I feel like baseball separates itself enough to do that. But obviously, I've been a Braves guy since I was a kid, back to the days of Dale Murphy. That
Oh, yeah.
1995 World Series was so long ago. And to watch that last night and to do it in the fashion that they did was so impressive. So I know these baseballs are going to be a gem for anybody that gets their hands on it.
Well, you're so right. I know back in the 70s when I was covering baseball, I covered the Baltimore Orioles for the Baltimore Sun. And I remember going into Milwaukee when Hank Aaron was finishing up his career with the Brewers and sitting down in the locker room and talking to the great guy. What a nice man. What a fabulous athlete. I was privileged enough to see him play in the 60s when he was at the height of his career. And a good friend of mine, Milo Hamilton, was the voice of the Braves when he hit the home run to break Ruth's record. And I wrote a book with Milo years later, Making Airwaves. And he was with the Houston Astros at that time as their lead broadcaster. But he, in those days, in the early 70s, he was doing the Atlanta Braves games. And I got a chance to meet Henry Aaron on several different occasions. And I got to tell you, not only was he a great ball player, but he was just a tremendous human being.
Again, Bob Iback with us here talking about these limited edition Braves baseball, just 2,021 of them, the sets going to be produced, Bob. Give everybody the quick rundown of how they can get their hands on it. And again, the best website and phone number to find these baseballs today.
Absolutely, Lawton. It's $99. You'll get all three of the baseballs in a gorgeous display case, certificate of authenticity. Everything is licensed. They're all Rawlings baseballs, so these are the real deal. Toll-free number to call is 1-800-345-2868. Again, that's 1-800-345-2868. Or go right to the website. I know the phones have been blitzed all day long. If you can't get through, don't panic. Go right to the website. You can order it online, NICOsports.com. You spell it NIKCO sports.com. I guarantee you, you put this up in your office or home with the display case, you'll have a fan walking in and say, wow, where did you get that commemorative baseball set for the Braves? It is a fabulous addition to your collection, or just to use as the holiday or Christmas gift idea.
Yeah, if you got a man cave, this will be the perfect accent piece for you, and really that opportunity to celebrate the Braves. Bob, I hate it. Doesn't look like you and I will be talking again about the Clemson Tigers this year.
No, I don't think so. Not unless you're going to replace the current quarterback and lead them to some better victories. But that happens. The program itself at Clemson is strong. It's going to be back. Sometimes you'll have a year where you'll flounder a little bit and you don't get to you get so spoiled by going to the playoffs each year. But Dabo's he's a solid guy. He's a solid coach. He'll have that program back running again. And I know in recent years, or upcoming years, I should say, we'll be chatting again about being back in the playoffs again.
Yeah, at the rate Clemson's been in, you guys are probably running low on the orange toner anyway for those footballs. So just give you a year to save up.
That's right. We'll take a vacation for a year, right?
Exactly. All right, Bob. Always appreciate it. I know our Atlanta Braves fans appreciate it, and we can't wait to catch up with you again soon.
That sounds good. Listen, take care of yourself, and happy holidays coming up, and we'll talk down the line.
Again, the number 1-800-345-2868. Also the website, NIKCOsports.com. All right, that was Bob Iback, man. That was awesome, getting a chance to work him in again. And those guys have been really, really a big part of this program because of how good Clemson football's been and the consistency in which Clemson's been winning. And we're constantly having the opportunity to give you a chance to not only get your hands on some limited edition stuff, but also support some great foundations, et cetera, especially with those footballs, man. Extra Yard for Teachers. You guys know I'm a teacher, so that stuff's always close to my heart. And then, of course, with the Atlanta Braves Foundation, et cetera, all that a big deal. And again, NIKCOsports.com. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Be a part of the program anytime, anywhere. And again, we are just thrilled to have an opportunity to chat with you about your world champion. Woo-hoo. Say it with me now. Atlanta Braves. And I think, too, so many people out there have waited so long. I mean, that's the other thing. So many people have waited so long for these Braves to do what they did on Tuesday night. By the way, a little bit earlier today, I did tweet the link out, too. So if you follow us at Clemson Sports, you can get to it right now. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. Text line and phone line. And again, your website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. I did see one, we're talking about the situation with Henry Ruggs III, the tragic news that came out of Las Vegas as the former Alabama wide receiver was involved in a car accident, a deadly car accident that killed one individual. And, look, that's it's awful. Nobody denies that. Reckless behavior by Ruggs, driving under the influence, going apparently 156 miles an hour and costing this young lady her life. But as tragic as it is, Ruggs always will have to live with that mistake and just trying to, whether he gets prison time or whatever ends up happening. I mean, it's an awful thing to have happen to a family member if you are the female who was killed, no doubt. I mean, nobody's denying that fact, but it's also quite difficult for the person who it happened to and to have to live with that. And that organization trying to deal with one of their rising stars now whose career is certainly in peril and in jeopardy. Derek Carr yesterday spoke with the media about how he would do whatever he can to try to support Henry Ruggs. And it's such a weird spot to be in because you would not wish any type of incident like that on anybody because of the burden that you have to carry, knowing that you took a life, even if you end up having to go to prison for it for a substantial amount of time, you still have to live with that in your head. And I can't imagine what that's like to have to go through it. And we talked about Henry Ruggs III and the situation with one of his former high school teammates who played basketball, and he puts up the number 3 before games. That young man was killed in a car accident. Ruggs was actually supposed to go, but was sick at the time back in high school, and he sort of carried that young man's memory with him. And then to have this happen, just awful. And even if Henry Ruggs wasn't impaired, if he had just been driving 156 miles an hour down the Vegas Strip or just outside of the Vegas Strip, I mean, that's still reckless, reprehensible, idiotic. But you still have to live with it. You'd still have to live with the guilt and the sadness and the burden of that. And one of the other things that came out was the fact that before it happened, he had actually texted David Carr, and also he texted Hunter Renfrow. I guess they're in a group thread. Of course, Renfrow is a wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, to talk about his golf swing. And man, what that organization's going through right now, it's tough. And you feel for guys like Hunter Renfrow and Cleveland Farrell and players who are his teammate, because you want to stand up. You want to stand up and be supportive of your teammate, but it's so hard because it's a lady lost her life. And man, what a position those teammates are in for Henry Ruggs III. And again, our thoughts and prayers obviously go out not only to this young lady and her family and Ruggs and just everybody who's ever been a victim of something like that, and the people who had it happen to them that lived and have to live with it, because I cannot imagine what that burden would be like to have that feeling that you had taken somebody's life with reckless behavior. 803-450-0086. All right, text line, real quick. Mac chiming into the program. Max says, Swanny, yes, going back to our conversation about DJ Uyunglele, he says, yes, if DJ goes out, there are problems. However, if you bring in any other top-notch quarterbacks, they may leave. Recruits say they are, quote, all in, but leave if they don't get any playing time. Man, now there's a interesting take again on the DJ Uyunglele situation we talked about earlier. I kind of brought it up, and I can rehash this now or maybe even in the next segment. But, again, I think the quarterback being the straw that stirs the drink, being that kind of solo man position, probably is putting a lot of pressure on himself, not certainly to be successful, but also to stay healthy. And I think I said, look, if you're part of like an 8, 9, 10-man wideout group and you go down with COVID, big whoop. There's 8 or 9 other guys. If you're DJ, yeah, there are backups, but it's the biggest drop-off probably of any position in college football and in professional football to go to your backup, unless it's just a weird situation like when Kelly Bryant's backed up by Trevor Lawrence, right? But one of the other things that Mac mentions is if you bring in top-notch quarterbacks, other people might leave. It does kind of make you where you have to be selective in who you bring in. And I think you see now with the transfer portal how that is not just going to be a bigger issue moving forward, but I think for players, it's part of the decision process. Like, am I going to go to Clemson and be a backup for 2-3 years? Or am I going to go to, I don't know, NC State and start? And that's something people may debate, and a lot of kids might debate it. The other thing, too, if you are a DJ Uyunglele hater at this point, he has not played great. Nobody's saying that. But let's not forget, DJ was willing to come to the school that had Trevor Lawrence in order to learn from Trevor Lawrence in hopes of making himself a better football player. Now, I can be as critical of DJ as anybody, talking about his kind of laid-back, laissez-faire West Coast attitude that I feel like I see from him when we interview him. But I also have to admit, in all truthfulness, that he was willing to come across the country to play alongside Trevor Lawrence as a freshman. Thank you for hanging out with me, Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk, on Twitter at Clemson Sports. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. Again, your Clemson Tigers are on the road, a night game up at Louisville. Oddly, Louisville, a team that's never beaten Clemson. And if Tim Bray could have come on today, but he couldn't, and I guess I could look pretty quickly, but I don't know how quickly. I'm assuming that's the only team Clemson in the Atlantic Coast Conference has never lost to. I think that would be the case. All that being said, speaking of games this weekend, how about the schedule du jour? And the fact that I think I heard a stat that we had games every night. I think this was the stat I heard. Games every night this week, all the way up through, I want to say maybe the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I think there's college football every night. As a matter of fact, tonight, Georgia State is at Louisiana Monroe taking on the Ragin' Cajuns. Or at Louisiana Lafayette. My bad. 7:30. Louisiana Lafayette. Tomorrow night, Virginia Tech's at Boston College, an SEC affair at 7:30 on ESPN2. Then the late night game Friday, Utah at Stanford. That's a 10:30 start on FS1. Things will get going a little bit early. A couple of military academies squaring off. Army versus Air Force on Saturday at 11:30 on CBS. You got Missouri at number 1 Georgia at noon on ESPN. The Buckeyes, the 5th-ranked Buckeyes at Nebraska at 12 o'clock. And again, these rankings, when you think about the college football playoff, Ohio State sitting ahead of Cincinnati. That's got to be in the crawl of Cincinnati fans. And also from the Nebraska perspective, what if they get the doors pulled? What if they just get blistered, which they probably will? I mean, how much longer can that program continue to flounder given how good they were in the 90s. I mean, you talk about what they won the title 94, 95, and 97. Man, and they have Scott Frost. Oof, they are not good. Number 9, Wake Forest is at North Carolina at noon on ABC. By the way, that is not an Atlantic Coast Conference game, as Roddy Jones told us. That's a non-con between those two teams. Now, you've also got Illinois at number 20 Minnesota on ESPN at noon. And Duke, the 25th ranked Pitt Panthers, are on the road in Durham at noon on the ACC network. Not a host of huge ball games in the early slate, obviously. Marquee game, however, in the SEC, as number 13 Auburn goes on the road at Texas A&M for the 3:30 kickoff on CBS this coming Saturday. Also, another game that you might want to tune into this weekend. How about number 19 NC State at Florida State, a 4 o'clock start on the ACC network? Look, if you're going to get to the ACC championship game, you got to get that three-way tie in some way with NC State. This would be their second loss. That would help. And then if Wake Forest could ultimately beat NC State, but also drop a couple of games and have Clemson be one of the two that beats Wake Forest, all of a sudden you're back in the mix for the ACC championship. Also a game that should have been, would have been, could have been, not going to be a marquee game. Alabama hosting LSU at 7 o'clock on ESPN this Saturday. And then last but not least, for all our fine-feathered friends peeking over the fence, how about the South Carolina Gamecocks taking on Florida, also at 7:30, much like Clemson and Louisville, except the Gamecocks will be playing on the SEC network as they host a Florida team that it certainly feels like Dan Mullen is on thin ice. How the worm turns in a hurry. A 4-4 Florida team coming to South Carolina. And I'm going to tell you, if the Gamecocks find a way to knock off the Gators on Saturday, first, it would be a shocking result. That's number one. But number two, that could be the end of Dan Mullen. Like, literally, Dan Mullen could be visiting his own funeral on Saturday in Williams-Brice Stadium, because if they get beat, I don't know if they'll let him get back on the plane. They leave him in Columbia. They certainly might. And again, looking at Florida and what they've done this year, they beat Florida Atlantic, they beat South Florida, they beat Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Oof. Not a lot there. Lost by 2 to Alabama. That's probably their best win. Losing by 2 to Alabama. That's the best victory. They lost by 7 to Kentucky. Lost by 7 to LSU in that back-and-forth barn burner, 49-42 a couple of weekends ago. And then lost to Georgia last weekend, 34-7. And again, for Dan Mullen, the criticism comes down to the post-game. You know, when he's asked about recruiting, and Georgia, listen, they've been one of the top programs in the country recruiting recently. Shockingly, to a degree. But man, when you get snippy and you're 4-4, that's not great. Additionally, their quarterback, Anthony Richardson, has a concussion and may not play, which means Emory Jones, who was replaced a month ago, might be back taking snaps for Dan Mullen, whose team is struggling, man. They are 4-7, as a matter of fact, in their last 11 ball games. 4-7 are the Florida Gators under Dan Mullen. And when you've got a program like Georgia on the rise and you're wallowing around at 4-7 and getting hammered by the Dogs, yeah, I said it, D-A-W-G-S, the Dogs, that's not going to go over well in Gainesville. Now, it'll go over well in Gainesville, Georgia, but it's not going over well in Gainesville, Florida. You can rest assured that that is the case. Again, 803-450-0086. Again, not a great slate of games this weekend. Not a ton. Again, keep your eye on that NC State matchup at Doak Campbell Stadium against Florida State. Could be a big one if FSU can get a win there. With a quick break, we'll come back with more of the show that shakes the Southland. It is Clemson Sports Talk rolling along on a Thursday afternoon. Clemson Sports Talk on Twitter at Clemson Sports, the website. Put a .com on it, clemsonsportstalk.com. So talking about Dan Mullen earlier and how quickly sort of the tide turned, pun not intended, just in general, for Mullen there at Florida. Again, 4-7 in their past 11 games and 4-4 this year. And I really believe this. If they get beat by South Carolina this weekend, that'll be huge for the Gamecocks. I might have to start talking about you as being bowl eligible, or at least having a chance to get there. But because that's not a game I thought South Carolina would ever win, but now looking at Florida struggle, maybe. But how quickly things have turned on Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Remember the excitement that existed just a few short weeks ago when Texas was rolling early on against Oklahoma? I mean, as a matter of fact, I joked, but I was serious. When in the midst of that ball game against the Sooners, I can't remember if we were shopping or something. We were out and about. And my son had a soccer tournament. And I asked my phone at that time, I said, and I won't say the name because your phone will probably beep and my phone will certainly beep. But I said, hey, Shlomo, what's the score of the Oklahoma-Texas game? And Shlomo came back and said, Swanny? Well, she didn't actually throw the I wish she would, though. I mean, I'll be honest with you. That would be nice. I know you can get her to say your name, but I wish she would have said my name. But she was like, currently, Texas is demolishing Oklahoma. And at that time, I think the score is like 28-7, maybe. And when you get Siri to, when you get Shlomo to say that you're being demolished, yeah, that's not great. That probably means you're not playing too good. And then even later at the end of the half, that score's 38-20. I mean, you're up 18 at the half, for crying out loud. But then the second half happens. Caleb Williams happens. And 55-48 happens. And all of a sudden, you go from potentially going to 5-1 on the season and feeling really good about yourself to now, just a few weeks later, you're 4-4 and people are going, what happened? I mean, they lost to Oklahoma, then they lost to Oklahoma State, and they lost to Baylor. The Oklahoma State and the Baylor scores very similar, 32-24 and 31-24. Those are all teams ranked inside the top 16. But with remaining games against Iowa State, Kansas, West Virginia, and Kansas State, what looked just a few weeks ago when you are up huge, when Shlomo's telling me you're being destroyed, but yet you can't get the JOBDONE, the job done. Yes, and now a lot of people, it doesn't take long either. The folks in Austin, Texas, feel an awful lot like the folks in Gainesville, feel an awful lot like the folks in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And you know who hasn't helped those franchises or those teams or those fan bases? Clemson, Georgia. Honestly, all of those teams sort of, it is rubbing salt in the wound because they don't typically see Clemson and Georgia as being preeminent or dominant or whatever you want to call them. And since that's what these two teams have kind of been recently, I mean, it drives those fan bases crazy. You know Florida fans are livid. You know it's frustrating for Texas fans to see Clemson there, or Michigan fans to see Clemson where the Tigers have been for so long. I mean, this year, the step back, I know that people are excited to see Clemson stepping back. Like, there's no doubt. Like, it's amazing how quickly, and I think you can all attest to this as Tiger fans, and certainly probably even Gamecock fans. You can probably attest to it as well. Like, you never, as a Gamecock, rooted for Clemson to be successful. I get that. But you know how the college football world was at one time rooting for Clemson. It's the same thing that happened to the New England Patriots. Mike Yuva from Gamecock Central brought this up the other day. Remember when the Patriots were fresh on the scene, going up against the St. Louis Rams team that had been dominant, the greatest show on turf, and the Rams came out introducing players name by name. It was like they named Warren came out, and then Isaac Bruce or whoever. They're going through all the players. And then when it was time to announce the Patriots, they came out as one. They ran out together. And that started the Tom Brady legacy. And that started the streak that they went on. And people were rooting in that game. The country as a whole. It's kind of like the Atlanta Braves against Houston the other day. The country as a whole was rooting for the New England Patriots to win the Super Bowl. And even for people like me, the last time prior to that I really remembered the Patriots being worth 10 cents was when the Chicago Bears were dragging them around in the 85 Super Bowl. What was that final score in that game? Like 44-20? Something like that? I mean, it was a blowout, man. That, by the way, was the first Super Bowl that I ever remember for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, William Perry was on that Super Bowl team for the Chicago Bears. Let's see, Super Bowl 20, January 1980, 46-10, the final score there. William Perry had a touchdown in that ball game, by the way, if you didn't remember that. But that's back when like little hip hop songs were the cool thing to do, and they had the Super Bowl shuffle. You're looking at the fridge. I'm the rookie. I may be large, but I'm no dumb cookie. Remember that one? That's fantastic. Stay with us.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Thursday. Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan with you again. Thank you for being a part of the program. Lots of fun hanging out with you. I mentioned this is the best time of the year. Well, which brings us to another great point. Because I heard people arguing about whether or not you should be listening to Christmas music yet. No, not yet. You're not. That's not. No. I saw people putting up Christmas decoration. No. Look, I'm not even a Thanksgiving guy. I hate turkey. Turkey at the bottom of my list. Like, I like Thanksgiving ham. I like a ham. I like steak as well, but we don't tend to get that at Thanksgiving. But hey, you know what? My dad, there was a little stretch there that we had steak at Christmas, which I got to admit, Scrooge had it wrong getting the duck or whatever. What was he picking up? Some kind of bird. I think it was a turkey, but then there was some other pheasant maybe. He should have gone with steaks. That's where it was at. All that out there. No, you cannot listen to Christmas music yet. No. Don't even. Don't. You want to complain, hit me up, 803-450-0086. And look, I am a Christmas music dude. Love Christmas music. You know this. You hang out with me on this show. You cannot play Christmas music now. Don't even try it. And don't put up decorations yet. You got to let Thanksgiving at least marinate a little bit. I'm not saying you got to push through the Thanksgiving dinner before you play some Christmas music or even put up some Christmas decorations. I'm okay with that. Like if you're having family over and it's really maybe the only time you can gather because everybody else has to be somewhere else during, you know how this goes, right? I mean, you understand. Then by all means, the week of Thanksgiving, you got a couple extra days off. You go for it. Go ahead and put up the Christmas tree. Go ahead and get in the spirit. Light up a little scented candle. Get your scented candles going. You know, you get a little cinnamon in the air. And listen to all the Bing Crosby you want. Whatever floats your Christmas boat. But not today. Now, if you wanted to start watching Christmas movies, like if you wanted to just dive into like Hallmark, if they've got that on right now, I don't even know, but I hear people talk about Hallmark Channel. But you know, if you wanted to watch a Christmas movie like It's a Wonderful Life, if you wanted to watch a Christmas movie like Home Alone, Die Hard, then yeah, by all means, settle in, snuggle up by the fire, and fire up a Christmas movie. But please, not Christmas music yet. Let Thanksgiving marinate. But it is the most wonderful time of the year if you like sports. Because Clemson's got a lot of them, as I said earlier, going on. As a matter of fact, the 24th ranked and 5th seeded Clemson women's soccer team will head up to Cary, North Carolina at Wake Med Park Friday night. That's tomorrow to take on the number 1 ranked and top seeded Virginia Cavaliers in an ACC semifinal matchup. That gets underway at 5:30. So we'll be on the air as they kick off that matchup at the NCAA, or excuse me, at the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament. Again, it is Clemson facing off with Virginia. Now, the Tigers and the Cavaliers did not play this season during the regular season of the ACC schedule. Clemson, however, knocked off Notre Dame on Sunday, 3-2 in the opening round of the ACC tournament. If they beat Virginia, they will play on Sunday in the championship game. So we do have some women's soccer. And again, it is a historic women's soccer program. 2 ACC championships, 8 Sweet 16s, 21 NCAA tournament appearances, and obviously playing some really good soccer this year at 12-5-1. The men's team as well getting set for their postseason also. And of course, the Clemson men's team has been so good as of late that it's really hard to ignore just how consistent that program has been. Quite frankly, outside of the Clemson football program, it is the second most consistent. It's the second most consistent program on the campus. And I don't think if there's something better, then let me know. I don't think there is. Sunday, they'll open Atlantic Coast Conference play against they'll open Atlantic Coast Conference tournament play against either North Carolina or Syracuse. Again, that's an 8:00 start on Sunday at historic Riggs Field. So 803-450-0086. That is the text line. That is the phone line. Again, be a part of the show anytime, any place, anywhere. Thank you to Mac for hitting us up earlier, and thank you to everybody who's chimed in with us through the week. I hate we couldn't get up with Tim Beret today. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. It just didn't work out. Instead, we'll try to hook up with him again next week. Tomorrow, Tommy Bowden joins the program, plus Clemson Tom scheduled to be a part of your Friday afternoon as you make your way home. Again, thank you for hanging out with us here today. Don't forget to head over to our Twitter account and look for those limited edition Atlanta Braves baseballs. We got to get out of here. Until tomorrow, as always, y'all take care now and go Tigers.